Welcome to Scrolling to Death. Today's discussion will focus on dangerous online challenges. I am joined by Joann Bogard from Indiana. Joann, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm happy that you reached out. We got connected through other parents that I have interviewed. You heard some of those stories. These other parents have lost children due to a social media harm. And I'm continually shocked at how many families have been affected by this. And Joann, you are another parent survivor who lost your son Mason through an online challenge. And I just feel so strongly how important it is to share these stories so that other parents know what to look out for, but also to honor the lives of children that we've lost like Mason. So can you tell us today about Mason, about his story?
Sure. So Mason was, we have 3 children, 2 are adults. Mason is forever 15 now. And he was our adventurous, outdoorsy, fishing, hiking, camping, woodworking kind of kid. Just anything outdoors. He loved it, especially fishing. So that was his, he went to a good school. He had good friends. He was generous. He had a healthy lifestyle that he was living, getting ready to start driver's ed. He had just started his first job at a landscape business. So, life was good. It was good. And on May 1st, 2019, it was a normal day for us with work and school and dinner. And he went up to take his shower and he tried the choking challenge, which is a viral social media challenge that goes around where children try to get themselves to pass out. And then, of course, they wake up and they post their video and they get the likes and the laughs and all of that they crave so much. This generation just craves that as a way of feeling accepted by their peers. So that's where when Mason tried it, we found him. He was on life support for about a week. When we found him, he was not breathing and didn't have a heartbeat. My husband did CPR and got a pulse back, but Mason never woke up. So he was on life support for a week, and ultimately he died from this. And we were blessed to be able to donate his organs and save other people. And when we did that, there was a video that was recorded of his honor walk by the donor network. And that went viral really quickly. And so I had people from around the world, places I'd never heard of, reaching out, first offering condolences, and then saying, how can we help? What can we do? They wanted that call to action. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I didn't know what to do yet. I had just learned about this. And so we decided to stand up and make a difference. So through different avenues.
I'm so sorry that you lost Mason in this way. What was his social media activity like? Did he have a pretty good relationship with his social media platforms? It sounds like he was super well-rounded.
Yeah, Mason was not big on social media. He would rather be outside, but you could always find him at his workbench with YouTube videos on, watching how-to videos on YouTube. And he would, trying to figure out how to make a better fishing lure and woodworking and all those things he loved. But he didn't have an active social media. He wasn't really big on that. So he'd rather be outside. So, and I was that parent, that crazy parent who had all of, and this was 2019. So I had all the safety features turned on that were given to us at the time. I had watchdog apps in place. We checked his phone regularly. We talked about those hard things at the dinner table about online safety. And so I thought I had it covered. I thought we were good. And yet this harmful content was still fed to him. He still saw it. He still felt safe enough after watching these videos to try it. And it took his life.
And that's what a lot of parents assume their children are just looking at videos of how to help them, improve their fishing, their knots or their activities. And it can be helpful for things like that. But then how does such a dangerous piece of content fall into that algorithm? Have you done any research around this since then? Like, why are these platforms serving content that the kid isn't even looking for?
Right. Well, part of that is because, like I said, I had all the safety features turned on. And to back
Right.
up a little bit, so 2 weeks before Mason's accident, he came to me with his phone and he said, "Hey, Mom, look at this funny video, this funny challenge that popped up on my phone."
Mm-hmm.
And, I had heard of the ice bucket challenge and some other things when we watched it. And I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't a harmful one. But
Mm-hmm.
that opened that door. And we had that conversation about, Mason, some of these can be dangerous. You have to be careful. And I remember thinking in my head, how did that get through with all of those watch things on? But I thought, well, maybe it really wasn't that harmful. Maybe like the cinnamon challenge or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we had that conversation. And what I have found is, they don't it's the social media companies who get to decide what's safe and what's unsafe, what your child should watch and what they so
Mm-hmm.
they might hamper something from you or I that maybe is political in their mind,
Mm-hmm.
and for us, we're thinking, why did I get shut off for that?
Mm-hmm.
And yet feed this harmful content to our kids. And, as we already know now, it's all about how long they can keep them engaged. And the more crazy the content is, the longer these kids are going to watch it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, since they are the ones, these companies are not transparent and they're not audited, and they don't apply those filters that we need them to apply, those safety
Mm-hmm.
features.
Right.
And so they're feeding our kids things that we don't want them to feed them. The
Mm-hmm.
kids don't even want to see it. So,
Right. And when you say the company decides, it's not even people, it's the technology that
mm-hmm,
decides. So whether
mm-hmm,
that's AI or whatever kind of technology they've created to choose what is going to get the most engagement, that technology doesn't have a morality filter or something to judge whether it's dangerous. There's AI recommending to people, you know, smoke cigarettes to lose weight, which it's
mm-hmm.
just there's no filter of
Right,
the human touch to it.
right.
And I do want to make a point too that parents often feel that their child won't be harmed because
Mm-hmm,
they've done all the things that you mentioned doing to prepare their children,
mm-hmm,
or and the point here is that from every story I hear, it's normal children, it's any child, it's not children who are, addicted to social media and just watching millions of videos and oh, of course they're going to happen upon something dangerous, right?
It's your average kid. It's your normal kids.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's going to happen to children who are online longer as well. But this is happening, and it's happening overnight. It's happening within hours. You put your child to bed as this healthy 15-year-old, or you send them upstairs to take a shower as a healthy 15-year-old, a well balanced lifestyle, and yet they don't wake up the next day, for
Mm-hmm.
whichever harm it is, whether it's sextortion, self-harm, cyberbullying, and suicide. The list goes on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So the choking challenge, obviously this is something that should never appear on the internet, and there are many challenges that are dangerous. um, and you found after this happened that there are lots of videos showing kids doing the choking challenge on the internet. And so what did you do from there?
so Mason, after Mason passed and I got all those messages, the first thing I started doing was searching for them. And it was just unbelievable, the number of kids doing this choking challenge. recording it, posting it. And so I just started reporting them and reporting them and reporting them. So every week for almost 5 years, I go online across all the platforms. I search for the choking challenge. I find them quickly and easily, many of them. I report them using the system that they have in place to report, and they are rarely taken down. Rarely. There have been 95 deaths from the choking challenge just since Mason died almost 5 years ago.
Oh my God. Have you spoken to anyone at these platforms?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
What?
we've had, there's a group of parents. We advocate together. We have met with CEOs at the top companies, and they're always in tears when they hear our stories, and they say they're sorry, and they say they need to do better, and they come up with either a band-aid fix, which is typically temporary or just for the community to make them think that they're doing something. But we know that through the whistleblowers and research that they're not doing everything that they can. They know that this harmful content is there. They are very capable of fixing the problems. They choose not to, all for a profit.
And so they are responsible for at least these nearly 100 children's deaths from the choking challenge. They've been made aware.
In my mind, yes. Yes.
There's no doubt about it.
Right.
Okay. And you noticed right away, I assume, that the videos, like you said, were not getting removed, the majority of them, after they were reported. And so I read that you filed a class action lawsuit against YouTube and TikTok for their lack of compliance in this area. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. So we filed in the state of Indiana a class action lawsuit against YouTube and TikTok specifically for not complying with their terms of service. So when they say challenges are not allowed on our platform, cyberbullying is not allowed on our platform, and we report it and they still don't take it down, that's unacceptable. Yeah. So that's what our lawsuit is about.
Okay. How's it going so far?
We just filed this year, so we're waiting on to hear back from the judge on some things. So
okay.
Or last year, it was 2023.
Okay. Yeah, I can't believe it's 2024.
I
know. Okay, and you filed against YouTube and TikTok. Are those the main platforms where these dangerous challenges are taking place, or are they on other platforms as well?
Those are the main ones that I find them on when I search, but they are definitely on all the platforms. They are on every platform, the small ones, the big ones, all of them.
Okay. All right. And I tried to, I wanted to look up the popular online challenges, and I just got overwhelmed. And there's words I don't understand, and there's always something new. So
which is part of the problem, right? It's ever changing. You can't keep up with it as a parent.
No. So I guess the goal is for parents to introduce the danger around these challenges early. So what specifically would you recommend a parent tells their child about online challenges once they know their child is going to be accessing the internet?
And so I think education, well, first awareness, obviously. A lot of parents still aren't aware of a lot of the harms that are out there. And like you said, they think my child knows better, or this won't happen to my family, because that's our normal thing, right? We don't want to go there. We don't want to think about those things. But it does happen, and it will happen eventually. Your child will be exposed to something, sextortion, bullying, challenges, hate crimes, something. They are going to be exposed to it if they're online, unfiltered. So what was your question again? I'm sorry.
What specifically for online challenges? Yeah, because yes, that's a long list of things that we do have to talk to our children about, and it can be overwhelming. But for online challenges, if I'm a parent and my child is getting access to social media, and what should I tell him or her about challenges
I
online?
think the first thing is, we don't want to hover over them and just say, you can't do this, don't do that, you can't do this, because that just raises their curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those talks at the dinner table or in the car on the way home from school or wherever that one-on-one time is for your family, I think the biggest thing is just saying, hey, tell me what you learned today. Hey, how did you feel when you were on Instagram today? How'd that make you feel? Just trying to get them in tune with their emotions based on what they're doing. So,
Mm-hmm.
how did you feel when you were playing outside? How did you feel when you were on that gaming system? Just opening up that door for conversation is the starter, and then start saying, hey, I heard about a challenge today called the choking challenge, but have you heard of that? Can you tell me about it?
Mm-hmm.
And I can promise you 99% of the time they are going to know about it, and they're going to start, oh yeah, it's a challenge such and such. I would never do that, and maybe they wouldn't, but there are so many other things on there that they would do. And
Mm-hmm.
I was that mom too. My child would never do that. He's smart. He wouldn't do that. He
Mm-hmm.
knows better. He's smart, but
Mm-hmm.
they're impulsive, and with those young brains, they just don't think ahead. We know that, right?
Yeah, and I have a couple interviews with brain experts or neuroscientists, and we do talk about that prefrontal cortex and why these kids, these ages, are so impulsive and don't understand what could happen in the moment, and then also, in some cases, not Mason's case, but some cases, feel that suicide is the only option for the situation that I'm in.
And that happens so often now. Our suicide rates are unbelievably high, and it's scary, right? It's
Yeah.
so scary to think your child could be in that position where they think there's no other option. Even though you're there as mom, somehow they don't see an out
Mm-hmm.
in situations that they might get themselves into.
Mm-hmm. Well, 9 in 10 kids don't tell their parents when they're being bullied.
Mm-hmm.
I would bet it's just as high around sextortion that's happening more and more. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, kids as young as 10 and 11 years old are dying by suicide.
Right.
And this can all be very scary for parents. And I'm intimately aware of these stories. And my children are 8 and under. I have 3 as well. And my gut right now tells me that they don't need social media ever. I need to teach
Mm-hmm.
them that it's a thing that exists in the world, but they will know the stories. And hopefully they'll be on board that we don't want to feel depressed. We don't want to spend all of our time online. And they're hopefully going to watch their friends who get social media and say, they're not even paying attention to me anymore. I don't want to be like that person.
Right.
So that's where I'm at when it comes to deciding if my children will get social media. How do
And
you
that
feel about that?
Yeah, so I think every family dynamic is different,
Yeah.
and I think that's where the problem lies. Is one, we need to make sure that parents are aware of the things that are out there, because there are parents who think, not my child, they know
Mm-hmm.
better.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also those parents who do everything that they can, and it still happens. Their child is still harmed or affected by social media.
Right.
So I really think that when we go back to just trying to educate them on, if you're at a friend's house, because you get to the point too where I can tell my child not to be on social media, I cannot give them a cell phone, I cannot give them these things that other kids have, but
Mm-hmm.
how do you deal with that when they go for a sleepover? Do you check, do you take their backpack, and do you ask the other parents, what do they have? And then the problem is too, when a child comes to your house to spend the night, do you check their backpack? No, we don't check their backpack, to see if they
Mm-hmm.
have a
Right.
phone or a device.
Right.
It's all, there's so much to it, that these are all pieces. There's not one thing we can do that will fix this problem. It's education, it's litigation, it's legislation, it's awareness, it's doing things like you're doing, spreading awareness, making sure parents understand these things are out there. And then if they decide that social media is right for their family, at least they have some knowledge behind it to know what to look for, to know the questions to ask and how to ask them, how to have those hard conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And having education in school on internet safety
Mm-hmm.
is, I cannot stress enough how important I think that is. It is just, it's vital. You know, we teach them about drugs and alcohol. We need to teach them about internet safety.
Mm-hmm. And there's a huge lacking around internet safety in schools. My older ones are in first and second grade, and since kindergarten, they've had an iPad in their class that has Safari Internet, that has YouTube, adult YouTube on it, and they are not taught safety around their activity on those things. They're just told you go to these educational apps, and that's it, and we're going to give you time frames. But okay.
And I think, again, that's why it has to go back to the social media companies. They have to be accountable for this, because as parents, as educators, we cannot control that situation all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when my child is, I can put my computer in the kitchen. I cannot give them a device. I can put the watchdog apps on. But there are so many times when they could be exposed to that. But if this goes back to the source, back to the social media companies,
Mm-hmm.
and they put those filters on it and they apply them and they make sure that the safety features are turned on for young users, that makes a huge difference, right?
Yeah. So how do we start holding them accountable? What needs to happen?
Well, I advocate for some state bills and some federal bills, and the big one right now is the Kids Online Safety Act.
Mm-hmm.
That's in the Senate right now. There's actually another hearing next week with all the CEOs on specifically sexual exploitation on their platforms.
Yep.
And so that bill, the Kids Online Safety Act, has so many features that would protect kids. I truly believe if that bill had been passed before Mason, that he would be here today. And I could ask 100 parents that same question who have lost their child, and they would no doubt tell you, yes, their child would still be here today if these companies were regulated. And there's no other American industry in the United States that goes unchecked, right?
Mm-hmm.
The tech industry is the only one that doesn't have to abide by any rules, and they have free reign to do whatever they want. So it's just time for them to be transparent. It's time for them to have some guardrails up and put some safety features in place. One of the things I like about the Kids Online Safety Act is the algorithms. As a parent, as a young user, you can opt out of those algorithms going to your feed. So that's a huge thing. A piece of the bill says that it would put education in schools. There are just so many things that, it turns on the safety features automatically for young users, because how hard is it as a parent if you have 3 kiddos who are different age ranges, and if you want to let them on TikTok or you want to let them on YouTube and you set those filters, they're all different, they're all complicated. It's just impossible to keep up.
Yeah,
it really is.
Every platform, even our Roku TV streaming, is like every little thing. Somehow my kids are renting movies, and I'm like, I thought I had a password protect on. Like, I don't. It's so confusing. Yeah, and every parent that I talk to, every parent survivor that's lost a child or had a child harmed, supports KOSA. I did an interview with Alex Fraser at Issue One, who that conversation was really great, and we talked about some of the pushback. So whenever there's regulation proposed or whenever there's legislation proposed that regulates technology, people throw out First Amendment, free speech issues. And so he addresses that pushback. That's a great interview for people that are hearing some negative feedback on KOSA. But for me, everything I've heard about it will help protect our children and save lives.
Well, and that's the thing. The Kids Online Safety Act is not about regulating the content. It is about, one, giving parents tools to protect their kids online, but also it's about the algorithm. It's about how they're designing the product. So when they create these platforms, they design it to feed content unsolicited to our kids, to keep their eyes on those screens longer so that they can make a profit off of that through advertisers. So it's not about freedom of speech. You can still say things. We do hear a lot of that pushback about freedom of speech, but this bill truly addresses, you are designing your products to harm children, and it has to stop.
How can parents learn more about KOSA and support this bill?
Yeah, so if you go to obviously you can do a search online for the Kids Online Safety Act, and it will give you the specifics of it. But we also, the Screen Time Action Network for Fair Play. If you go to their website, it's the Screen Time Action Network for Fair Play. If you go to their website, Fair Play has so much information on KOSA that really spells it out, and that's another thing that we have to remember with social media. When people put articles out there and stories out there, check the source. Is it an opinion piece, or is it disinformation or misinformation? Just check those sources, and that's another thing that we need to start teaching that, a little bit better. We need to be better at that, and not just hopping on that emotional bandwagon of, oh my gosh, this upsets me so much.
And so I'll link to that website in the episode notes in case parents want to check that out and find out more about KOSA. I wonder what you feel about, I saw a couple days ago, maybe yesterday, that Snap Inc. officially supported KOSA. Snap has had a lot of negative press lately. Specifically, they are being sued by over 60 parents, soon to be over 90 parents once they get these new parents on board, for social media harms. Specifically, this lawsuit is about fentanyl and children who have purchased a pill through Snapchat and died from a fentanyl overdose, over 60 of them. Okay, so there's some negative PR around Snap. And I was surprised, but maybe not so surprised to see their support of KOSA. So what is your thoughts around that?
I don't know what they're thinking, so I hate to say too much, but in my opinion, every time I've talked to these social media companies, they will say one thing so that the public thinks they're working on it. We've seen a lot of commercials lately, Instagram, giving parents tools, things like that. But when you really look at what the tool is, it doesn't get to the source. It doesn't really get applied. It doesn't really fix the problem. So it puts that onus back on the parent again of, here, we'll help you watch your kids online. Well, that's not all of it. We have to have more than that. We have to have them in the background saying, we're not going to send it to your kid. We're not going to send the choking challenge to Mason. We're not going to do these things. So when they say that they are in support of KOSA, are they really not going to send their lobbyist in to vote against it, to lobby to vote against it? We'll see. But we have a lot of, the Kids Online Safety Act has 49 co-sponsors right now, and it's bipartisan. It's split right down the middle, Democrats and Republicans. So it's not a red and blue issue. It's not, everyone's on board. Everyone knows we need a fix. I think we just can't be afraid of change, because sometimes, maybe some people think, well, it's technology, it evolves, and you just got to deal with it, and you're just going to have to figure out a way. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. I mean, we can certainly mandate that they make some changes that we know they're perfectly capable of making, and they being the social media companies.
Well, and we can't allow them to be protected under a law from the 90s anymore. Like, we have to evolve. They're evolving. We need to evolve in regulating them.
Absolutely. And we are so far behind in that. 25 years, it's just too long.
It's
We
insane.
need legislation. And like I
Mm-hmm.
said, the Kids Online Safety Act is, in my opinion, the best bill out there that covers so much, privacy protection, all the default settings. It's just, there's so much in that bill.
Mm-hmm.
If you read the bill, it covers so many of the harms that our kids are dying from. And this would protect so many kids.
Okay. It's good to hear that is looking good. What do we need to do to get it pushed through? Like,
Mhm.
is something holding
So,
it up right now?
yeah. So, if you call, we'd love to have 100% of the senators on board, right? That would
Yeah.
make it start. Just calling your senator from your state or your federal senator
Mm-hmm.
and saying, please vote for the Kids Online Safety Act,
Mm-hmm.
because we have all these wonderful senators who are asking the hard questions, who are, like next week when they have them in the hot seat, when they ask those questions, we need those senators to actually vote yes to pass KOSA. So
Mm-hmm.
getting it to a Senate floor vote is big. So just calling your federal senator and asking them to get the bill to the Senate floor so we can vote on it. And if you don't know who your senator is, you can go to that Fair Play website, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
really easy link. You just type in your zip code and it will take you right to your senator, phone number, email, however you want to do that. So it
Yeah.
makes it really easy.
Is that actionnetwork.org? Is that or is that a different
That
site?
is,
So if you go to
um,
passcosa.org and then they have a link, write your
yes,
letters. Okay.
yes. And then
Okay.
there's
All that's a link.
fairplayforkids.org as well. So they can
Okay.
go directly to Fair Play.
Okay.
Um, it's probably actually better for them, when you put this in your feed. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably better for them to go to fairplayforkids.org. That's
Okay.
probably the best landing spot where you can find all about KOSA.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Because
And then if parents want tips on
mhm.
keeping their kids safe online, that is where they would go to the Action Network, the Screen Time Action Network,
Okay.
and they would find those tips there. And I
Okay.
have a Facebook page called Mason's Message, and I
Mm-hmm.
put tips on there that I find to keep kids safe, and some information about KOSA and those things. So,
Yeah. And I visited that Facebook page. It's really good. And you keep it updated pretty well. There's a lot of updates to it. And I know that's a lot of work. And I think that's one thing too parents need to keep in mind is one way to keep yourself educated if you're active on Facebook or Instagram is to follow Facebook pages like Mason's Message, my page. There's so many pages that are
mhm,
sharing these stories and giving you that education in bite-sized pieces so it's not too overwhelming.
mhm,
And then also if your kids are on social media, have them follow
mhm.
as well if you think they're old enough to absorb those
Absolutely.
stories.
That's a
Yeah.
great tip. I think too, that there are more and more people stepping off of social media. So don't forget, years ago we didn't have social media, and we were
Mm-hmm.
still able to connect and get those emails and get into different organizations that, so
Mm-hmm.
if you're not on social media but you want newsletters that give you tips every week, find that reputable website that's going to do that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then just sign up for their newsletter and you can get those weekly tips.
Yeah. And we forget that social media is not the only place that we can get information.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah,
um, I wish it wasn't so required to be active on social media to feel
it's hard not
informed.
to be. It's hard
Yeah.
not to be.
I was off of social media entirely for about 3 years before I started this podcast. And
Mhm.
now I just use it for promoting the podcast. I don't have a personal connection there. But yeah, I felt actually really free and less stressed and all the positive things that you feel when you're not on social media.
There are definitely positive sides to the internet, to social
Mm-hmm.
media, to all of these things. There are positive things. We get to share tips. We get to share your videos,
Mm-hmm.
for tips for parents. There are so many positive things, but they just aren't outweighing the negative. And when we
Right.
start having children die, we need to be better balanced at that.
Yeah, we
I'm
could post positive things all day, but that's not how the algorithm works. The algorithm is going to find the harmful content. I think Mark Zuckerberg shared something in a presentation years ago that was like, the closer content gets to breaking our rules, the better it does.
Mhm.
It's just,
We are, as a human race, we are attracted to those heightened emotions like that.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
when our endorphins get kicked in and we, watch something or hear something, it's a drive, and kids are so susceptible to that. So it's hard for them to look away from that screen when
mm-hmm,
there's so much content there that keeps them engaged
mm-hmm.
purposefully.
Yeah. Are there in-person events that parents could potentially attend? I know you co-founded and co-lead the online harms prevention work group at Fair Play. You can tell me about that, but I'm always interested in how can I meet people in person and try to connect.
So my friend Amy Neville, she um, she attends some rallies at Snap. Like they will go sit on their stand on their front steps and have rallies there.
Mm-hmm.
Next week there's a rally in DC. On January 31st there's a rally in DC around sexual exploitation and the online harms, and just it's following the Senate hearing. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a rally there. So I think any town that you're in, there's someone who will stand up with you,
Mm-hmm.
about some of these things. So whether it's something specific or whether it's broadly online harms,
Mm-hmm.
or, whether it's education in schools on internet safety or any of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I need to um, do this as well, but getting together with parents locally just to talk, friends, parents of your children's friends, just to talk about what are you guys doing around screens. So there's friend groups, and then there's also getting in front of the PTA and getting in front of your school
Right.
district and saying, what are our safety measures around these
Mhm.
devices, and that our children are spending most of their day at school and accessing lots of devices now, and we need to be involved in that. We need a little bit more of an involvement in the decisions around that.
Right. And I think we're getting there. You have more and
Yeah.
more parents standing up, coming together at PTAs and at schools and in your neighborhoods saying, I'm worried about my kid on social media. Well, mine's not on it. Really? Okay, then mine's not going to be on it either.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you have those common groups of parents,
Yeah.
it's easier to say no, because that screen time fight is in every home. You can
Mm-hmm.
say it's not, but when they get to a certain age, it's going to be there. My friends all have it. I need it. I want
Yeah.
it. It's not
Yeah.
fair. So those fights are real.
Yeah.
And I think if you have those like-minded communities that
Mm-hmm.
band together and say, we're not going to give our kids phones until or smartphones until such and such um, age, or we're going to just use dumb phones or no
Mm-hmm.
social media, and just figure out what works for your family and your community. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where changes happen.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be the entire class that all doesn't have phones. If
Yeah.
there's at least a handful that you can band
Hmm.
together with, that will really help to normalize it within your child, and help them be okay with that decision.
Right.
Um,
I
so
agree.
I know this is a tricky question, but what would you say the sweet spot is for giving your child a smartphone? What age generally, and every family and child is different, but what age would you consider a smartphone, if you had to do it all over again?
There, if I had to do it all over again, I'd get rid of my smartphone. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so maybe never.
Mm-hmm.
I think, even as adults, we get so addicted. How often do I really need to check my email, and how often do I check my email only because it's convenient right there in front
Oh
of me?
yeah. Yep.
There are so many options for what they call dumb phones out there now
Mm-hmm.
that a smartphone, do they need it? Because the dumb phones, they have the GPS, they have texting, they have talking. It looks just like a smartphone. It's not the old QWERTY keyboard,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
it. And so, I mean, I think there are so many options out there that that dumb phone that won't allow social media to be downloaded. It won't allow them to connect with predators or strangers that you don't approve of. That, I mean, I just don't think there is a good time for a smartphone. But
I
there are a lot of
agree.
organizations who say wait until 8th. Um, Now I see more and more organizations saying 16. Just don't even let them have it until 16. They don't
Mm-hmm.
need it. Just don't even let them have it. And you will have those parents who say, well, I still want to, while I'm in control of what their limits are, while they're still home, I
Mm-hmm.
want to be sure I can watch over them and teach them properly how to use it.
Yeah.
So by doing that, age 16 in my mind seems like a reasonable age to
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, you're driving now, so let's, you have a lot more freedom, so let's do this little bites at a time. Let's
Mm-hmm.
start with, you know, this type of cell phone and start moving up with the smartphone on what they can download and what they can view
Mm-hmm.
and watch them and have those conversations every day,
Yeah.
every day. It can't be, oh, we already talked about sexual exploitation or meeting strangers online. We already talked about that. Well, it has to be a constant. They're kids. That's how their
Mm-hmm.
brains work. It's
Mm-hmm.
reminders, reminders, reminders.
Yeah. And because I have heard the algorithm can go from light and fluffy to just within the next 5 minutes, all of a sudden they're
Yep.
getting served
Yep.
dangerous stuff.
Very true.
Um, and those dumb phone companies, so the big ones are Pinwheel, there's Bark, and there's Trumi. I have done little review videos on those phones,
I
and those
think
are,
Google has one now too. If
oh,
I'm
really?
not sure. I think
Okay.
they do.
Okay. Let me
I
look
have to
into that.
check that. Verify that. I'm not sure, but I
I
think they
will.
do.
I wish they had a better word for it or descriptor than dumb
I know,
phone.
dumb phone. What kid wants to walk around saying I have a dumb phone?
I'm a dummy. I have a dumb phone.
Yeah.
Like,
I think just calling it, I have a cell phone. I have a basic phone.
right,
Yeah.
right, versus smartphone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, a lot of these companies call their phones kid safe. Some of them have that trademark, kid safe. And
Hmm.
I hate that. I can't,
Yeah.
I just wish, we don't need to encourage kids to have cell phones either. And thank you for sharing. That's exactly what I'm hearing from other
Hmm.
sources as well. Um, okay. And so before we close out, I would love if you could share, if you're open to it, a favorite memory of Mason.
Oh my gosh. Memories of Mason. There are so many. He was
Yeah.
our, like I said, adventurous kid. Um, Probably one of my favorite memories. We did a lot of camping and hiking, and before he passed, that year before he passed, we went on a lot of adventures, a lot of trips, cruises, Disney, all of it, the Mayan ruins. But I think there was one, we went to the Grand Canyon, and he was sitting there on this landing that was just, it was kind of scary actually, but he was
Mm-hmm.
sitting there and he was just so at peace, and it was his happy place. And I just saw him sitting there and I thought, what is he thinking about? Like, is he thinking about nothing? Is he thinking about, what is he thinking about? So after his moment, of course I didn't interrupt him. And then after a while when we left, he said, Mom, I'm going to live here someday.
Oh, he was
So
imagining his life.
yeah. And
Joann.
so I do think often that he visits there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was his very special place. And it's to find that in your lifetime, even a short lifetime. I don't think I've found that place yet.
Yeah, really. Um, but yeah, that makes me smile when I think of him sitting there so at ease with who he was, peaceful, serene.
Thank you for sharing that, Joann. That is so, so sweet. And it's rare to hear a child just sitting anymore or a
Yeah,
teenager.
really. Yeah.
Um,
And he was 14 at the time, so yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. In their
No.
own thoughts. The other day actually reminded me I was in the car with my husband and three kids in the back, and there was 45 minutes went by and the kids were all awake, just looking and thinking. And I just said to my husband, like, what are they all thinking about?
I do wonder sometimes, what are they thinking? Are they
Yeah.
plotting?
Right. But I felt so proud of myself that my kids could sit, in their own thoughts for that
And
long.
that is something that I think a lot of our younger generation has gotten away from. It's a constant engagement with something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think teaching them teaching them to just sit and listen to their own self, their own
Mm-hmm.
minds, their own thoughts
Mm-hmm.
is such a valuable skill.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and they may call it boredom, but boredom comes up a lot on this
yeah,
podcast, and it's extremely important to their brain
it
development
is. You have to
to
be
be
bored.
bored.
You have to
Yeah,
be bored. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We grow from that, right?
Yeah. Where can listeners connect with you? You mentioned Mason's Message account on Facebook. Is there anywhere else that people can go find your work?
Um, they, I've done a lot of podcasts and interviews and
You've done a lot.
documentaries
I
and
saw the
just
list.
things. So,
Yeah.
just finding those on there, online, just to hear Mason's story.
Mm-hmm.
But probably the best place would be Mason's Message Facebook page, which, that's sounds so ridiculous saying you trying to get them offline, but like I said, there are some good positive things that can come from these social media companies, that being
Mm-hmm.
one,
Mm-hmm.
that we can spread awareness and education through it. But the other thing is, the Screen Time Action Network.
Mm-hmm.
I co-chair a work group there. So if parents want to go to, or anyone, you don't have to be a parent. We welcome. We have some college students. We have educators, psychologists, pediatricians, parents. Some grieving, some not. Um, but if you go to the Screen Time Action Network,
Mm-hmm.
there is a work group called the Online Harms Prevention Work Group, and I co-chair that. And we collaborate together as a group. There are about 60 members in our group, and we meet monthly on Zoom, and we collaborate on how to protect kids. It might be, a few of them might be working on parent tip sheets. Another one might be working on legislation in their state.
Mm-hmm.
Another one might be working on some kind of educational piece. That just there are so many things that this group
Mm-hmm.
of wonderful, wonderful people are working on. That it's amazing. It's a really wonderful work group that is very active, and they're making changes. These moms and dads and students and parents and kids alike, they are making big changes in our world. So
And it doesn't take hundreds of people or thousands of people. It just
no,
takes
it doesn't.
a
It
few
takes
dozen
people who
people.
care, though. It takes
Yeah.
people who are passionate, and if you have a passion for something, whether it's whether it's a podcast that spreads awareness, or legislation, or whatever it is, if you're
Mm-hmm.
passionate about it and you can help someone else, that feels so good to do that, right? It makes
It
your heart feel good to be able to help someone else.
it does feel good. It feels like the only thing, once I transitioned away from my other career to this, I was like, oh, I wish I was doing this years ago. I just kind of
Yeah.
floated through, like not really feeling passionate about anything until I found the thing that
Yeah.
I will never not be able to do. And I am surprised I haven't joined the Screen Time Action Network yet. So
Oh, you are
the group,
so welcome. Please
yeah,
join us. We would love
yeah,
to have you there.
I would
Yeah.
love it. I just want to do as much as I can to support.
Yeah. Well, you're more than welcome. I can send you some information
Okay,
on our work group.
okay,
After this, I can send you some information on our work group. And if it's something you think you might be interested in, you're more than welcome to sit in
okay,
on one of our meetings or
yeah,
join right away, whatever you want to do.
yeah,
And we can get you connected. It's a
okay,
great network of people passionate about those things that we,
mm-hmm.
holding big tech accountable,
Mm-hmm.
basically,
Yeah,
awareness, education, and holding big tech accountable.
yeah.
Those are the things that we focus on.
Okay. Are you going to the big tech CEO hearing on the
I
31st?
am.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
I'll
Okay.
actually be at the hearing holding Mason's pictures. So,
Yep.
they're gonna have to see his face and know there will be several parents there doing the same. And
Yep.
then we will all be going to the rally together after.
Oh,
So,
I wish I could be
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Um, I will be watching the live stream
yes,
and just with my eyes glued because this is what we need. We need these
right,
CEOs on camera answering
right.
these hard questions.
And I think that what we want from them, a lot of people ask that, what do you want them to do? I want them to be honest with their answers. Like if I could ask them to do one thing, it would be answer honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Don't skirt around the question. Don't try and save face. Don't try to answer the question honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Can you fix this? Will you fix this?
Mm-hmm.
Do you recognize that it's a problem?
Mm-hmm.
And move forward so that we can actually fix the problem. So if SNAP wants to say we're in favor of KOSA,
Mm-hmm.
answer the questions honestly. Answer them honestly and let's move forward because, like I said, 95 more kids didn't have to die. And that's one harm, one challenge, one thing. And if
Mm-hmm.
you think about, like cyberbullying and suicide, those rates are so much higher than that even. It's
Mm-hmm.
extortion, sexual exploitation, all of
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. So, I think our ask as a group, we've discussed it, and our ask would be just answer the questions honestly.
Evan Spiegel, this is your chance. All of them. This
Yeah,
is your chance to be honest
yeah,
and take some accountability. Not give the PR runaround. And I really
right,
hope as well that they can
right,
do that finally.
yeah,
Um, Joann, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing your story. You really, I was looking at your bio, you have done like hundreds of interviews and pieces and podcasts and all these things. And, I'm just one little piece, and I'm so grateful to be able to share your story and other parent survivors' stories so that other parents, listeners here can take steps to be a little bit safer in their decisions around technology.
and we appreciate you doing these podcasts because that's what gets it out there. That's what lets parents know this is what I need to be doing. This is what I could be doing or should be doing
Mm-hmm.
for my family.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we appreciate that.
Thank you, Joann.